Hi guys! How are you today? Welcome back to my channel Adventures in America. Today we are going to talk about the Philippines travel restrictions and why it is in such a hot mess right now during this pandemic. The President of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, just landed in major news outlets around the world because of what he said, that those unvaccinated Filipinos or those who refuse vaccinations will face jail time, or otherwise they will be injected with an animal drug. As of June 20, only 2.1 million Filipinos have been vaccinated so far, and the government has been targeting at least 70 million Filipinos for vaccination this year. He also mentioned that if Filipinos refuse to get vaccinated, then you are free to leave the country. You can go to India or America. So this is what he said. Now, the presidential spokesperson, Harry Roque, suggested that the Congress of the Philippines could pass a law compelling vaccinations for Philippines. Duterte needs to know why Filipinos refuse to get vaccinated. Now, at least 6 out of 10 Filipinos are having sentiments or refuse to get vaccinated. If you remember, during the early efforts of the Philippine government to vaccinate Filipinos, they used Sinovac vaccine from China, and during that time there was no emergency use when it was administered. Now, can you imagine Filipinos refusing a vaccine because of its low efficacy or because there is low confidence on the vaccine? Now, most Filipinos prefer to get the Pfizer vaccine, which has a better efficacy or which is most effective against COVID. There are several reasons why Filipinos or people around the world refuse to get vaccinated. First, for medical reasons. Our bodies are different. They are not all the same. Some may take the vaccine very well and some may not. So we don't really know the long-term side effects of the vaccine. However, I am not against or pro for those refusing to get vaccinated. It's your own choice. It's your own body, and you know how you will respond to the vaccine. Now, let's move on to these ridiculous travel restrictions for inbound passengers. Number 1, 14 days quarantine for fully vaccinated. Now, the Philippine government issued a resolution distinguishing those who are vaccinated in the Philippines and those vaccinated outside the Philippines, or those unvaccinated. If you are vaccinated in the Philippines, you only be required to have a quarantine for 7 days and no test. However, those who are vaccinated outside the Philippines, for example, US or in other countries, you will have to quarantine for 14 days, and the first 10 days will have to be spent on an accredited hotel by the Department of Health or Tourism. So how can this be? What is the difference between those vaccinated abroad or vaccinated in the Philippines? If the Philippines is administering the same vaccine like Pfizer, so it should be uniform, or at least remove the quarantine requirements for all vaccinated individuals. The Philippine government wants to jail Filipinos who refuse vaccination. However, those who are vaccinated will still have to quarantine. So there is really a contradictory position between these two statements. Number 2, travel restriction, the use of a face shield. Philippines may be the only country in the world using a face shield together with a face mask. But recently, the Department of Health restricted the use of face shield for indoor use only. However, if you're outside working or you're alone walking, you can remove the face shield. This is a welcome development. However, they have not completely scrapped the use of face shield for everyone. If you are not aware, there is a requirement of a visa or an entry visa for foreign spouse who has a Filipino wife in the Philippines. Now, there is a requirement from Philippine consulates abroad that before you can get a visa, you must comply with all the documents such as financial documents to present to show your financial capacity to travel, and other documents that you need to submit so you can secure a visa. One of that requirement is that you needed to submit a photo of your wife in the Philippines, and she must hold a newspaper on that same day, like her picture with a newspaper showing the calendar date, just to make sure that she is in the Philippines. Maybe Philippines has no confidence for those foreign spouses visiting their wife in the Philippines. There is this another rule or another travel restriction that the Philippine government has imposed for all inbound passengers. There is only a one room or one adult per room. Now, if you are a couple or a married couple, then you need to book a room separately. I'm not sure why is this rule, but you can call or email the hotel so you can request that the couple be in the same room, and only there are 3 exceptions, such as if you have a minor child or another adult that has a medical condition, or if you have another passenger with you who has a physical disability, then you may be allowed to be in the same room. But this one person or one adult per room is just ridiculous, and it's just adding more expenses for traveling passengers. Another rule, you have to pay for your swab test. The cost is an average of 4,000 pesos depending on the port of entry. So you need to shell out money to pay for your own COVID test. But if you are an overseas Filipino worker, the test is free. But for those who are not overseas Filipino worker, then you must shell out at least 4,000 pesos, and you have to pay separately. So all of you need to register ahead of time, like all of the traveling passengers together. You have to pay separately for the COVID test. Number 6, the Philippine government just imposed another travel restriction for those fully vaccinated in the Philippines. 1, you must present the original vaccine card, no copies or digital copies. And second, there must be a certificate of vaccination from the Department of Information Communications System and Technology, or the Office of the City Health Officer of the local government unit where the last dose of vaccination took place. Now you need to present these two. So if you are traveling before departing the Philippines, and when you get back to Philippines, you have to present this again. So there's more bureaucracy, even if you're just availing of the 7 days of quarantine for those vaccinated in the Philippines. Number 7, the entry exemption documents for foreign spouses or foreign parent. Now, there is a tricky situation for these individuals who are going to the Philippines. Now, if you are a foreign parent, you needed to secure the exemption from the Department of Foreign Affairs or National Task Force Against COVID. And it's hard to get information on this one. And the only thing that I get information is from those who were able to secure documents. Now, there are different Bureau of Immigration press releases showing that entry exemption documents are needed for foreign spouse or foreign parent of a child in the Philippines or a spouse in the Philippines. And the only reason for the exemption, there must be an emergency or an illness or death. So otherwise, you won't be able to secure this very much coveted entry exemption document. So for those foreign spouse or foreign parent, if you could please postpone your travel until this requirement has been removed or lifted. And sometimes there are some viewers who posted that they were able to secure this entry exemption document and the entry visa, but then they were denied boarding or denied entry in the Philippines, and there was no explanation why. So you may be denied boarding or denied entry even if you get this entry exemption document. Number 8, travel restriction. A pre-booked quarantine hotel for at least 10 days for those vaccinated outside the Philippines. A pre-booked quarantine facility for 7 days for those vaccinated in the Philippines. So the Philippines has 2 quarantine protocols for those vaccinated inside or vaccinated outside the Philippines. And if you refuse or if you failed to get the pre-booked hotel when you arrive, you will be denied entry. And this is based on the press release of the Bureau of Immigration. Refusal or failure to secure a pre-booked hotel quarantine facility, and these hotels must be accredited by the Department of Health or Tourism. You are forced to pay ahead or book these hotels even though you are already vaccinated. Now, this is such a ridiculous travel restriction. Number 9, the balikbayan visa is available only for former Filipinos or a Filipino with a foreign spouse. They must be traveling together. So, if you're a foreign spouse, your spouse is a precious individual to enter the Philippines. So, you need to travel together so you can avail of this balikbayan visa. Number 10, you must also comply with the local government unit's own travel protocols, as if you haven't gone through all these hassles coming to the Philippines, and you have to comply with the national government's travel protocols or quarantine requirements. Now you have to comply with the local government's health protocols, and at the same time be aware of the community quarantine levels if you wanted to travel domestically. I hope that the Philippine government will lift some of these travel restrictions that are obviously burdensome, not just for non-overseas Filipino workers, but also for everyone planning to travel the Philippines soon. And if you recently traveled in the Philippines, please share your travel experience. And if you can, please provide us a detailed information, such as when you arrive at the airport or during your quarantine or when you went home for the home quarantine. Let us know what you think of these travel restrictions. Also, thank you guys for watching, and if you have any other questions or comments, please post them down below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Again, thank you for supporting my channel, and if you haven't liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. I hope everyone is staying safe and have a great day.